Hello there, MotoAmerica fans. This is Paul Carruthers, the communications manager for MotoAmerica, and this is our weekly podcast, Off Track. I do the podcast every week with Sean Bice, as our fans would know, and I'd like to introduce him today. You still stinging from that birthday, or are you okay?
Yeah, it kind of ended pretty quickly for me. I kind of wanted to go on. I don't have too much of a problem with even numbered years, but it's those odd numbered years. I don't know why. So next year is going to probably bug me more. But no, I'm in good shape. Everything's good. Hey, I haven't really told a story in a while on these, and this isn't really much of a story, but it kind of leads into our guest for today. And so I want to talk about on this podcast for people that have followed us. I've made reference a lot of times to Loudon because I used to live about 45 minutes from that track in New Hampshire. So that was my home track that I would go to. It was an unusual one to go to for a lot of reasons. But one of the things I distinctly remember was in 1994. It was only a few years after the track had been reconfigured and they had the speedway there and everything. But there was a Twin Sports rider named Ashton Yates, who I didn't really know too much about. And of course, Twin Sports, they were all on those Harley 83s, if you remember, Paul. Those were fun, and we talked to Eric Bostrom and Ben about that era too. But I remember when Aaron won the race in Twin Sports, and that was his very first AMA national victory. And it's amazing to think about the career he had. So I'm going to fast forward a couple years. It was 1999, also at Loudon, and this was an odd year because people that know about Ashton Yates' career obviously think of him as being a Yoshinari Suzuki guy, and a little bit with Michael Jordan as well, but definitely a Suzuki guy. Well, he raced for 1 year for Muzzy Kawasaki. It was in 1999, and at Loudon that year, I remember. I think it must have been in Supersport 600 or whatever they called it in those days. Aaron got on the podium, and so he came up on the podium, and Richard Chambers, who people might know or remember as being the voice kind of at Daytona, he would come up and do the Loudon Classic quite a bit. And so he introduced Aaron to the podium, and Aaron came up and he had a little baby in his arms. And Richard Chambers says, oh, look at Aaron's up here with his little girl. What's your little girl's name? And Aaron said, well, first of all, this ain't no little girl. This here's a boy. And he was like so indignant about it. And I know it's 99 because our guest today is Ashton Yates, who was born April 2nd, 1999. Ashton, let's bring you on and talk to you. You were only a couple of months old. Do you remember being on the podium?
Oh no, definitely not. But I remember. I think I was like 4 or 5 years old. My dad actually brought me onto the podium, and I might have been a Mid-Ohio race, and I was holding a trophy and wearing a oversized T-shirt and stuff. There's actually photos of that. I remember that pretty well.
Yeah, at a very young age, you were up on the podium. Yeah, you were only a few months old, and obviously, I'm being facetious about whether you remember, but I can't remember if I've told you that story before. But it's something I'll always remember about. I knew about you heard about you when you were born, but got to kind of see you at a pretty young age, and it was odd that was that year. It was the only year that your dad raced at Kawasaki, and like I say, he was kind of known for Suzuki, but your career has been interesting so far, and let's start out by talking about it. Paul and I were talking before the podcast that you've raced a lot of different classes. Paul, talk about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like I was getting dizzy when I was doing some research this morning. As it turns out, Ashton's ridden in 6 of our classes now. He started obviously in KTM RC Cup, and then he raced in Junior Cup. He's raced in Stock 600. He's raced in Supersport. He's raced in Stock 1000, and now he's racing in Superbike as well. And he's won 2 of those classes, and he's podiumed in 2 more. So he's actually had podiums in 4 of the 6 classes that we've had. The only thing he hasn't taken part in really is Twins Cup. I mean, That's a lot of racing and a lot of classes for a young guy, Ashton. Does it seem like a whirlwind for you?
Well, not really as much, I guess. I mean, my dad kind of brought me up in the supermoto stuff, always racing multiple classes and stuff, and he told me if I remember back 2018 when I rode Junior Cup and Supersport 600, he's like, if you want to be good, doing Supersport and Junior Cup is the way, and it'll make you a good rider. And so I'm kind of used to it, and I like the challenge, and it makes me a better rider. And I'm kind of enjoying the stock 1000 and Superbike. Are doing both of those classes this year as well to kind of get an idea what it's like to be in the Superbike grid and stuff, and maybe next year do the same thing again.
Yeah, Ashton, I've got a question for you related to this sort of second generation, or really third generation, with your It's hard for me to even say your grandfather, Lucky, because I would always talk about Aaron's dad, Lucky. But so I've always been kind of fascinated about this with younger riders whose fathers and family race. It's not necessarily a given that the child is going to be interested in doing it. And I've always heard different things. Like, for instance, Wayne Rainey talks about how his son Rex was interested in baseball more than anything. Do you have a huge? You seem to have a huge passion for racing. Do you remember when it started? It was encouraged by your family, but is it just like, this is what I'm going to do because this is what we all do? How did you develop your love of racing?
Yeah, so obviously I grew up, going to the races with my dad from when I was a baby and stuff, and I pretty much grew up at the racetrack, and just remember my dad, riding me around in the pits, and me, 6-year-old me trying to take off on the Yoshimura Suzuki pit scooters and stuff, and yeah, like I've been around racing my whole life and stuff, so. And I kind of knew as I was starting to get older, and like around 4 or 5, and I actually started to race and be a little more competitive in the racing stuff, that this was what I wanted to do. And honestly, I couldn't imagine life without motorcycles. It's kind of been my life.
So, Sean, what I also noticed when looking through Ashton's past records is, and I'd kind of forgotten until I saw it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I believe in the MotoAmerica era that he's the only rider that's finished on 2 podiums in 2 different classes on the same day, which he did back in Road Atlanta, if you'll remember.
I do remember. Yeah,
he was on the podium in Junior Cup and Supersport, so that was pretty cool. It leads me to a question. Now you're riding thousands, so it's even a bigger jump. But how big of a jump was it from going like the little KTM's and even the Kawasaki Ninja 400 to the 600 classes?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty big difference as far as the weight of the motorcycle and stuff. You kind of got to ride the 600 in a similar way, but it's kind of in between, the lightweight bike and the heavyweight bike. So you have to use the same characteristics you use to ride the lightweight bike and the big bike at the same time, I guess. So it wasn't too bad. I think the main thing that I struggled with might have been just the weight of the bike and getting used to that.
Now, what about, it seems to me like, given your size and the way you like to ride the bike, that like the 1000 might be the perfect motorcycle for you. Do you feel pretty comfortable on it?
Oh yeah. The 1000s are definitely my favorite bike to ride so far. I feel comfortable on it because I'm a bigger dude. I actually fit on it pretty good, and I like the power too. I'm a power guy, and
Get to slide
mainly
it around a bit.
yeah. So I mainly train on the 450 Supermoto a lot, and that's kind of like my riding style, anyways. So
Yeah, Ashton, it's amazing the video that you send us of you a lot of times at Haren Compound or whatever. It's the stuff is always hugely popular. I'm sure you see all the comments that we get on that, and you probably do on your own channels as well. But people really enjoy watching you do all the things you do. Do you ride pretty much every day?
sometimes, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty fortunate to be able to have Josh's Haren compound like an hour from my house, and I also have my own piece of property back in Milledgeville, Georgia. My dad and I have like 150 acres, and we've got a TT track, trails, and all kinds of stuff to ride on, and rip on. And usually, I can't go a week without riding something. So, and then we got the lake just 5 minutes from that, and yeah. So I'm usually occupied doing something, training wise.
Sounds like a pretty ideal situation. So you obviously ride a lot of moto and turn track stuff. What else do you do for your fitness? Do you do cycling, mountain bikes, or anything like that?
Yeah, I love mountain biking. I do my own workout stuff. I don't really do much working out at the gym or anything. I kind of do my own deal there, and I'll train with other guys. I mainly do the supermoto stuff, maybe some motocross here and there. I'm not a big jump guy because I've most of my injuries from riding have mainly been from motocross, so I try to take it easy on that side. But yeah, and then like water sports, I got a stand up jet ski, and I'll ride that thing. It's a pretty good workout too. So
That's cool. That's what you mentioned with the lake. I mean, is that where you do the jet ski?
I got one right here.
yeah, oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah, that's great. As far you mentioned about no jumps and stuff, and I think Paul probably thought the same thing I did. Is that every time we hear about one of our riders getting hurt, it was when they were doing moto and it's something on a
Yeah.
jump or whatever. So that's a good idea. Do you do any? Well, I mean, I know you do turn track stuff in supermoto. Do you? I guess you kind of do some flat track stuff. Have you ever thought of? Have you done any flat track? Gone to any? I can't remember if you've gone to any of them.
Yeah, actually, back in 2015 and 16, I did the last Daytona short track
Oh, that's right.
event.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was my first like pro flat track event, and I did the Daytona TT the year after that, or the first year they did that, and the Atlanta short track. But I was kind of new to all that. I've been wanting to do some dirt track lately. I want to do a TT before the year's over. I'm that's another thing I train a lot on too. I forgot to mention the TT track at my dad's house. So yeah, I like the flat track pretty good too, and it's not as dangerous as some of the other stuff you can do while
Right.
training. So
Right.
Well, speaking of your dad, like it seems to be in high fashion now to have rider coaches, and guys are paying people to be their coaches. And it seems like, I mean, the obvious thing would be to think that you have a free coach and that your dad would help you. Is that the case, or is he pretty hands off when it comes to actually critiquing your riding and going out and watching you and seeing if he can give you any advice?
my dad has always been pretty like like he wants to help me out, but he kind of wants me to figure it out on my own. He doesn't. He's not really the dad that pushes their kid. He doesn't really push me at all. He wants me to do my thing, and the main thing, he wants me to have fun. Sometimes I remember back when I was just starting to get into like or riding on the larger circuits and stuff. He's kind of telling me. Sometimes he tell me to take it easy
Right.
out there, and like, man, be quiet. I want to go fast. But he just but he just kind of looks at like I guess he looks at it like, dang, my kid's doing this crazy sport that I grew up doing, and I don't know. But I enjoy it, and as long as I'm having fun, that's what that's the most important thing at the end of the day. So
Yeah, that's a good attitude for him to have, and it kind of takes the pressure off you, I would think, because I mean, I've seen some of these relationships where the dad's pretty hard on the kid, and doesn't normally turn out very well. So you can consider yourself fortunate that that's the way he is with you.
Yeah, it's not even fun when there's a dad I mean, when stuff like that happens or there's a day like that, it doesn't even make it fun.
When you
So
look back, at all the years, I mean, it's funny because I mean, you've basically been with us from the beginning, and it seems like a long time, and it seems like you were such a little kid at the time. Do you, when you look back at what you've done so far in Moto America, is there one year that really stands out as a year that you enjoyed more than any of the others?
mm, yeah, I mean, the KTM RC Cup season 2016 was pretty fun year, honestly. When uh I progressed a lot through that year, and I got my first podium in New Jersey, I think. Yeah, and then I just kind of progressed throughout the year and uh, would get a win, and then my first pole position, and like a double weekend. I think one weekend, double win weekend, and yeah, I mean it was a pretty awesome year riding with Brandon and Anthony and all those other guys, which were all my friends at the time. I mean, some of us still are, but I mean, we were friends off the track and on the track. It was a pretty good time.
Yeah, I mean, being in the paddock, it's you see those kids at that age in those, now it's Junior Cup, but before it was KTM, and it's kind of fun to watch them like at night and stuff when they're just out being kids. And it doesn't surprise me that that was back when things were more fun, just because of it was kind of a fun series and everybody being on the same bike. Was that something that you liked when? I mean, it was kind of like everybody lined up with similar equipment, so somebody down the road that had more money didn't necessarily have a better bike.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying that it's like the spec class racing was probably something you enjoyed because the bikes were the same, so it was like it was the rider and not necessarily whose father had the most money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, Ashton, I want to ask you on most of your race weekends, our race weekends, I try to get down there at some point. Go over and talk to your dad and your grandfather a little bit. And I'm always impressed with the fact that, you guys are always working on something at the time. So can you tell us, like, how does it work within the team, the structure? I mean, it seems like your dad's working on the bike. Is he really technically your crew chief? And what is your grandfather, what part does he play in the whole thing? Other than to tell you to stay off social media, which I know he's told me that a couple times.
Uh, well, yeah, my dad's the main guy. Works on my bike. He doesn't really like anybody touching the bike sometimes, but yeah, my grandpa will help out with work on the bike when we need him. He's kind of the fuel guy, I guess. And this year we got some help. So, but it's mainly my dad that's messing with the bike, and my grandpa's always there uh, to support us and stuff. He never misses a race, so I'm pretty fortunate to have both of them by my side every race weekend.
Yeah, I mean, he was always a fixture with your dad back when your dad was racing, so it's pretty cool that he kind of continues it, and it's fun to see that the three generations of you guys hanging out together and doing stuff. Talk to us about I had this at the Road America 2. I had a chance to come down and talk to you a little bit about the fact that you were racing a Honda this year, hoping to get the newer bike, but you've got the one that you have now, which is as red can be. And, you've done well with it so far. And it's interesting the fact that you're, other than Cameron Jones in Junior Cup, you guys are really the only ones that are, well, I guess he also raced in Supersport or was going to it at Road America on a Honda, but you guys really carry the flag for Honda. And it's unusual because I can't think if you would know this better than us, but I don't remember that your dad ever raced a Honda, but you are. And can you talk about this situation with Honda, how that came to be, and what you're planning to do with that down the road, possibly?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, we weren't really sure what we were gonna do, and Cameron Jones and his dad Daryl Jones were kind of the reason, or that was how we got on the grid this year. We weren't really sure what was going to happen, and they kind of last minute had messaged my dad, Daryl did, and asked if I wanted to ride the Honda. And I much rather would be out racing than, sitting on the couch and stuff. So we were like, heck yeah. And we got the bike, and we're supposed to be getting a new bike whenever. Before the coronavirus stuff had happened, it was supposed to come in around May, but it's going to be later down the road now, maybe this fall sometime, unfortunately. But the bike I'm riding isn't too bad. And Road America was like the worst track. I feel like I think once we come to Road Atlanta and these more technical tracks, we might have a better chance and a better chance of getting up at the front. I mean, not at the front, but closer to the front. It would be awesome to get up in the front in the rain or something, maybe. But yeah, we're just really trying to build a relationship with the Honda guys, and it's kind of cool being the only Honda out on the track. And yeah, we're wanting to get that new bike soon.
So you brought up Road Atlanta. What it's your home track, but sometimes that doesn't necessarily translate to it being your favorite. Is it one of your favorites?
Yeah, Road Atlanta is one of my favorites. I've always gotten pretty good results there. So I like the track layout. It's pretty technical track. I haven't been there on a 1000 yet, so I know it's going to be a challenge. But yeah, it's always that was my first big track I ever went to, big circuit on a TZ 125. I'm pretty sure. So it's always been one of my favorites.
I also want to ask you about the Haren compound too. You obviously spend a lot of time there. You said it's about an hour. I wasn't sure how far you live from there, so it's a little bit of a haul for you to go up there. But you've been there so many times, and there's such a fixture with that place. How does it work when you go there? Do you have to let them know you're coming? I mean, do you just go out on the track? And what's the situation with Josh now? I believe he's mostly always out in California. Do you see him very much anymore?
Nah, I don't see him that much. I mean, he'll come and visit the Haren compound every once in a while and stuff. But no, I mean, I've always been good friends with the Harens and stuff, and Kim, I love Kim, Josh's mom. She's awesome, and they're just great people. That's pretty much where I learned how to ride and get fast was with Josh there back 2011 or 12. When we found out that place was there, my dad brought me out there, and I kind of fell in love with riding the mini motos out there in Supermoto with Josh, and I was just getting faster and faster out there riding with him. So we just kept coming out there, and yeah, I go out there usually whenever I want, and I'll help with the track since Josh isn't around. I'll do a lot of yard work. Usually takes a full day to cut all the grass at that place, but I know Kim can't do it on her own, so I try to help out the most I can, and they let me train out there whenever. So
yeah. Now we can't go too far into this, Ashton, without me asking about you. You had mentioned you're good friends with Kim and with Josh. Seems to be you're also pretty good friends with Zoe. So does she live at home, and do you see her when you're at the track most of the time?
yeah, I mean, that's another thing, because I date Zoe. Yeah, I can visit her and I can be at the track at the same time. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, she's usually at home all the time, and we'll hang out there, and I'll ride, and she'll go hang out by the pool or something, and she'll help do yard work. We'll do yard work together or something. Yeah, we usually hang out a lot there. So
Not a bad idea to date a girl that owns a racetrack.
yeah.
With a swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the neighbors. They're really good friends with the neighbors, and so am I. But it's just like on the other side of the track, we just ride to the other side of the track, and there's a pool over there at the neighbor's house. So.
That's pretty great. We started out this podcast where I had joked about first time I heard your name, or or whatever, your first experience was a couple of months in to being born, at least at Loudon when you were on that podium. And let's talk a little bit about your dad's career. Obviously, you were young when he was involved in his career, but he had a very, very long career when you look back at it, and did some pretty amazing things during that time period, and was a fan favorite for a lot of people. Used to be known as Double Aaron the Enforcer because of how he took no prisoners when he was out there on the track, and was sort of known for getting his elbow down before a lot of riders did. It was something he always did through the S's at Mid-Ohio, and I used to remember that pretty fondly. But how much do you know about your dad's career, and have you had the chance to sort of look back at it through videos? Does he talk about it very much, and do you have a pretty good grasp of what he did in AMA racing?
Oh yeah, I mean, I know pretty much everything. I've watched so many races, and my dad, he doesn't really talk much about it. You know, he's really cool and laid back, and there's some things that people tell me like, dude, did you know your dad did all this and won this and freaking sliding across the finish line while he was wheeling, and have you seen this video? And I'd be like, holy cow, man, I haven't seen that. And yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff that he's done, and he really is a humble guy. He doesn't talk much. He just stays cool.
So he's the opposite of Brandon Posh, your riding mate today.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's good. I don't know if you saw the guy, a couple of the riders, the Team Hammer and the Yamaha team were up at the Ridge a couple days ago, and went around it. They said it was a fun track, a lot of turns in it, and some elevation changes. Are you looking forward to going to that track? You probably haven't seen it or been there, I wouldn't think. Have you, Ashton?
No, I haven't. But from the photos and stuff and that I've seen in the past few days, it looks like it's going to be a fun track. I mean, from the photos I've seen, it kind of looks like it might be similar to Pittsburgh in a way. And I love Pittsburgh, so that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, somebody told me yesterday it was like a combination of Pittsburgh and Infineon, and they said one other track. So they've all said that it's a lot of fun, and the racing there will be good. So, does it help you on a with the bike that you're on now? Does it help you to be on a tighter track more so than the faster track like Road America?
Honestly, the first time I rode that bike was I'm pretty sure it was a weekend before the first MotoAmerica round at Road America. It was at Heartland Motorsports Park, and other than Road America and Heartland, I haven't rode it anywhere else. So it was pretty dialed in at Heartland Motorsports Park with just a few changes we had made to it from right out the box. So or dialed in as far as the corners and stuff. It felt really well. So I'm really hoping Road Atlanta it's going to work good.
Wait, Ashton, you said Heartland. Are you talking about Topeka, Kansas?
Yeah.
You rode it in Kansas. How did it end up that you were out in Kansas? I don't get it.
So Daryl Jones and Cameron Jones are, I guess Daryl considered our team owner. That's where their shop is, and it's in Missouri. It's up there.
That
north.
Makes sense.
So
yeah, you're right.
The closest track.
You're right. I knew it was Missouri. I knew he was from Missouri, but I always forget how Missouri and Kansas. It's like what Kansas City is. Actually, the Kansas City people know is in Missouri, not in Kansas or something like that. So it's actually kind of hard to figure it out. But that's a track. I think your dad's probably been at that track. Didn't he race at that track a few times?
Yeah, he would have.
I think AMA went there for a year, maybe.
Yeah, I think 1 or 2 years.
Mistaken.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a cool track, honestly.
Yeah.
I think they had a problem with like one of the final turns on the track, so they quit going there or something. Is what my dad said, I think.
Yeah,
but
there's some stuff.
It's a really neat track.
There's some stuff that it would take some work to get rid of, I guess. There's some, I don't know if it's a big ditch still or a wall or what it is, but I know there was something there that kind of prevented us from from taking it too far, but I know MotoAmerica guys looked at it.
Of the tracks that we go to now, not counting the Ridge since you've not been there, but of the tracks that we go to and are still going to, what do you have one that stands out as a real favorite for you?
Barber has always been my favorite track, I believe. It's just awesome, flowy track, and there's something about that track. I just feel comfortable there, and I can get a flow going no matter whether it's practice, qualifying, or in the race. I can get a good flow going. So, it's a beautiful track.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you on that. I mean, I enjoy that track just from us going there and being a spectator or whatever. But, it's interesting. I think probably Josh Haren considers that one of his favorite tracks too. I think he thinks of it as one of his home tracks too. You probably do too, since it's not too far. How far of a drive is it from home for you to go to Barber?
About 2 hours.
2 hours. And how far is it from your house to go to Road Atlanta?
Pretty much the same, really, maybe an hour and a half.
Isn't that funny? I thought you were closer to Road Atlanta. So wow, you're a little ways from there then. Okay. I gotta learn my geography a little bit better, but and this track coming up, will you have a lot of your friends will be coming up to it? Is that the plan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll have friends and family from Milledgeville, and my granddad's brother Gary. He's been to the races a few times with us. He was at Pittsburgh last year, won that podium in the Stock 1000 class and stuff. And he's a big supporter. He was always a big supporter of my dad and stuff. He's awesome.
Yeah,
And
I gotta just
Haren
say about Gary. My gosh, when you see him, he looks like he could be your dad's brother. I mean, it's so weird that he's your dad's uncle, right? I mean, it's just nuts.
Yeah, so he's 13 years younger than my granddad and 13 years older than my dad. And people mistake him for my dad sometimes. They tell me stories years ago where they'll walk up to him and say, "You Ashton Yates?" And he'll be like, "No, but he's over there," or something. And it's funny.
That's funny. Okay.
He really does look like your dad.
I've only got one more question, and then I'll let Sean finish it up. But I know you're at the Supermoto track today with Brandon. Who's faster?
We're like dead even. It's pretty crazy.
That makes
We're
it
at
fun.
Bristol Motorsports Park. Yeah, I mean I'm like quicker in the tighter stuff here, and then he seems to get me in like one or two turns. He makes up time and stuff, but we're like dead even. But it's a lot of fun to be able to have someone like Brandon to ride around with. Even though I ride at Josh's a lot, I rarely have someone out there, quick enough that I can like ride with and compare with and talk to. So it's pretty awesome to have him out here. I've been wanting to come down here for a while. I've been stuck riding Josh's for too long. I need a different track.
Yeah. Are you guys about the same height now, or are you still a little taller than Brandon?
Honestly, I think we're about the same height because I stopped growing and Brandon looks like he may still be growing. I don't know, but
I think you're right. Still shooting up there, but no, it's cool. It's great to have you guys in the series and continuing on. And Ashton, it's been fun to see you develop. I mean, I remember, I think it was at New Jersey when you were on the podium that one year, and Paul went to you in the press conference to talk, and I think you kind of had a moment there where hadn't done it before, and I was telling him before this, just from talking to you at the track, I mean, you definitely have come into your own and are a good communicator now. Let me put it that way. So it's good that you're involved in our series and you represent our future really well, and you've done some amazing things on the bike. So thanks so much for being on with us.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, I remember it back. I remember that day back in the KTM Cup. I didn't know what to say.
I know.
I'd never done an interview like that before, and my dad. I came back to my pit, and my dad was like, I had to take I think he took like a Suzuki
He
interview
did.
class or something, or I don't know. But I guess he struggled with the same thing or something. I don't know. But
Yeah, you came
I'm
around.
figuring it out.
You came around pretty quick. I remember that day after that one, or that day, I said, "Look, when we go back in there the next time, just pretend it's just you and me, and I'll ask you questions and just answer it like those other guys aren't there." And then you picked up on it pretty quick, and everything went pretty smooth since then. So that was. I always tell people that story to show how much these kids develop from the time they get on their first podium, for the rest of their careers. It's fun to watch them develop that way too. So congrats on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny, Ashton. Just as mention about your dad again. To your point, he is really quiet and still is, but he was always great in press conferences. I'm sure, Paul, you agree that when you would ask him a question, he was pretty thoughtful with his answers a lot of times and really explained himself well. So.
Oh yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's never a big talker, like you said. He's a humble man, but yeah, he told you what you needed to know, so it was very helpful.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Ashton, thank you, and I want to say thank you to the fans too for listening to this podcast. It's great to have Ashton Yates on. Please subscribe to MotoAmerica Live Plus, our popular subscription streaming service, and also don't forget to get your race weekend tickets. For sure, Road Atlanta is coming up. It's Ashton's home track. He's going to have a lot of family and friends there, but he's going to want to have a lot of people from all over the Georgia area, Atlanta area, coming out to see him, as well as further than that. And it's a great track to watch. It's a fan favorite. So you go to MotoAmerica.com for details on how to sign up for our streaming service and also get those tickets for our races. So and we'll be bringing it to you. Thanks so much.
Okay, guys, thank you.